Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with a bonus episode of Let's Talk Racing Live. My guest today is Jonathan Eckelberg, and I'll let John tell you why he's on the show and why he deserves to be a bonus episode, because he certainly does, for all the work and all the things that he is doing in motorsports. And, I'm doing these bonus episodes because, like I explained to John, most of my shows are interviewing women in motorsports. But there are a lot of organizations and tracks and all kinds of people that are doing wonderful things to promote motorsports for both men and women. And so we want to be able to share those stories with you in addition to the stories about the women in motorsports. So today, John is going to tell us first, John, a little bit about yourself, where you live, your family, kind of what you do. And then we're going to find out from you what you're up to, how did you get started being involved in motorsports. So, John, I'm going to let you take it away.
That sounds great. Well, thanks so much for having me on the show today and talking about what we're doing in the sport of auto racing. Some background on me. So I grew up in the sport of racing. I grew up going to La Crosse Speedway in La Crosse, Wisconsin, watching my dad as I grew up racing there. And then I eventually raced myself. My family raced at primarily La Crosse for 35 years and just retired in 2022. So my dad raced, my sister raced. We had a handful of other drivers that raced with us along the way, but I raced 17 of those years and retired out from the NASCAR late model division at La Crosse. I now live near Madison, Wisconsin, just north of Madison, with my wife, and I have a 18-month boy at home and a 4-month-old boy at home. So it's a little hectic
busy
at our house. Yes. So we're very much looking forward to some warmer weather in the summer so we could be outside more and wear off some of that energy. But I'm here today to talk about the High School Racing Association, and this is an organization that started in 2020 between La Crosse Speedway and Madison International Speedway, and those track promoters kind of got the organization going, Chuck Deary and Greg McCarnes, and kind of managed things themselves, and with the other tracks of like Rockford and Thomas Sparta that came on board as well. And then before the 2022 race season, they approached me about being the director of the High School Racing Association. So going into the 23 season will be my second season as director of the HSRA. And it's an all high school division. We've doubled the amount of tracks that they're participating at going into 23. So we're not only at La Crosse, Toma, and Madison. We've got Dells Raceway Park that's hosting HSRA, Slinger Super Speedway, Beaver Dam Raceway in Wisconsin, in addition to La Crosse, Madison, and Thomas Sparta. And then we've gone back into Illinois with Sycamore and Macon Speedways as well. So we've got 8 tracks going into 2023, and really looking forward to being at more tracks and getting more high schoolers involved in the sport.
Okay, so I love it. And as I told you before we came on the air, had I not taken the path I did into finance, accounting, that kind of thing, I probably would have gone into teaching, because social media wasn't a thing back then. That's what I really love. But that was not even on the radar at the time. And
sure.
So I probably would have been a teacher, and I probably would have been a high school teacher. And people look at you crazy when you say you like high school kids, but I really did. I was a cheerleading coach for 10 years, and I like high school kids, but I went in the accounting arena, finance and that. And so I didn't ever do teaching, but I know what it's like to help kids find their passions. And I love that that's what you're doing at the high school level. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what is the HSRA, as far as, like, if you came to Portage, Michigan and spoke to the kids at the school, what would you tell them? What do you do, and how would they get involved?
Yeah. So what we're doing with HSRA is trying to make make it a realistic opportunity for high school kids and young people to get into the sport. We know that cost is often a barrier to entry, and or just knowledge, not knowing where to even start. If you didn't grow up in the sport, you might not know that the opportunities exist out there and that there's people that are willing to help. So HSRA is an all high school division. They're not mixed in with veteran drivers. They're at each of these tracks that have HSRA are hosting up to 6 race events a season. And we're always looking for more tracks to bring HSRA to. And it's a way to get young talent into the sport in an economical way, in a realistic way. They're racing 6-cylinder, essentially stock cars. Certainly some safety enhancements with the roll cage, at least a 2-point roll cage, door plate, window net, helmet. All of the safety requirements are certainly non-negotiable. But the car itself is really stock, in that we're not, it's truly an entry level division, trying to get these kids that maybe they grew up in the sport, and that's great, and maybe they didn't, and they're interested in trying a less traditional sport, or learning more about cars, or they enjoy working on cars, and they're a little bit of a gearhead. We're just trying to get these high school kids into the sport. They have to be between 14 and 19 years old. They don't have to have a driver's license. They just have to be of high school age to race at one of these tracks. And some of the racers go to multiple tracks. They're traveling to Dells and Madison and La Crosse and Slinger. And some choose to just race at their local track, and that's okay too. And there's series wide points. There's a series champion, HSRA champion, that receives a scholarship from Weir's Machine, and a champion's ring from Jostens, and
Wow.
right, and HSRA champion flags and jacket, and a big trophy as well. But this division is a non-monetary, there's no monetary purse with the division to keep them as amateur athletes if they do other sports. But then on the flip side, they're paying $25 for the full season to get into the pits and race HSRA at all of these tracks. It's no matter if they're traveling around or not. It's one pit pay, or one pit pass for the whole season. And these scholarship opportunities, some local restaurants have come on board around these tracks to provide these high school racers with some meals every time that they race. And Napa in West Salem up by La Crosse Speedway is providing an HSRA discount. And so we're always looking for other opportunities to provide benefits and incentives to these racers too, because we know that there's some costs involved, and each of them is responsible for their car. Some schools are starting to get a little bit more involved, but right now the student is responsible for their car and getting it to the track. And so we know that there's that cost there, and we want to try and make it as possible as we can for them.
So I love this. I knew a little bit about it from reading an article, I believe in the PRI magazine, but hearing you give me the details, the $25 for the year pit pass, restaurants that are helping to feed these kids, if there's a McDonald's or a Wendy's or a local restaurant, the fact that they don't come by themselves, and they give the kid a free meal, they're going to be feeding the rest of the family. And so what a smart thing to do for not only the restaurant, but just to help the kid out and the family. And because we know, especially now with gas prices too, it's not getting any cheaper to race. And so we need to be doing what we can. And the future of our sport is right there. It starts when they're 5, and it grows. And so to be involved with this, I'm assuming they can either have been racing quarter midgets or something else, and they're moving up, or they can just start fresh in this series.
Exactly. And that's been the cool thing to experience, is there's kids that grew up in racing with their parents racing, or relatives or friends, and they might have grown up going to the track. But there's also been a lot of young people that have come into the sport brand new, and there's new families that are being attracted to auto racing because their high schooler can do it now.
Yeah.
And new fans in the stands, and with teachers and administrators and extended family all coming to cheer on this high school student that's racing. So it's, not only are we wanting to grow the talent in the sport and the racers that are in the sport and hopefully keep them around for a long time as a competitor, but we're also looking to fill more seats in the stands too, and get some expose new fans to the sport. And if they know someone that's racing now, then that might be a little bit more incentive for them to come out to the track and check it out. And maybe they've never been there before or haven't in a long time, and now we're getting new people in the stands too.
Yeah, and that's important too, because even if these kids don't continue to race, we've given them the bug, haven't we? And they're more than likely going to be a race fan.
It's hard to get out of your blood once it's in it.
Boy, I tell you what, it's definitely something. I was talking to somebody and I said it's good, but it's also kind of like almost like a disease that crawls in your bloodline, and you can't get it out no matter what, because it's
exactly. There's no cure.
There's no cure for it. No, that's for sure. So men and women, or boys and girls both, I'm assuming.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. We've had both females and male high school racers out there the last couple of years, and I've heard from actually a handful of female drivers that are planning to start in 2023 too. And so we're constantly looking to, really diversify the division as well. And have people from all, we're a welcoming community. Racing is a welcoming community, right? Yeah. So people from all walks of life are welcome in our sport. And so it's been cool to just see all of these people from, different places geographically, but also different backgrounds and different, skill levels, and, come out and be a part of the big racing family. So yes, we've had some really talented women racers in the HSRA division already too. And I'm looking forward to attracting more of them to the sport. And it's been just cool to see the progression of the talent with these high schoolers too. Some of them had never driven a car before. If they, were coming into HSRA as a freshman and don't have a driver's license yet, they've maybe never driven a vehicle before, and to give them that opportunity on the racetrack in an enclosed environment, if you will, and be able to develop those driving skills too, has been really cool to see. Some of them that maybe were a little bit more cautious at the start, and they they were all kind of spread out at the beginning of the season, and then to see these racers really running hard toward the end of the season has been cool to watch that progression.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I can kind of picture it in my mind over the first year, and then last year, those ones that came back have that much more confidence in that. So how did you introduce this, or how did they? I know they brought you on, but how was it initially introduced? Did they go to the schools? I mean, they had to get the tracks on board, I'm sure. So let's say they got their tracks on board. Then they went to the school. How did they go about introducing it to the teenagers?
Yeah, so it certainly has started a lot at the track level, and providing that opportunity at these tracks. But then we've been really intentional in connecting with the schools in the area around these tracks, connecting both with athletic directors, but also schools that have strong automotive programs, but even ones that don't, connecting with those technical education classes, and some of those instructors that might have a passion for racing, or just a passion for these trades that are out there, and exposing students to trade careers that are available. And so we, in 2022, actually had the very first high school in the country awarding athletic letters for auto racing. So Melrose Mindoro High School up by La Crosse, Wisconsin, provided athletic letters to their HSRA racers. They made it a school sport, a letterable sport, and to our knowledge, we're the first school in the country to do that. And so we've got other schools talking about that, providing that to their students too. And that's, just another incentive for students at that school too, to be a part of HSRA, and they can, they can be recognized by their school as an athlete for auto racing, which who knew that would ever be a reality. That was a huge win for us, and super excited that other schools are looking at the opportunity to do that too.
Oh, I think that's amazing, because you know what? Every kid can't play basketball. They're not coordinated. They're not tall enough. They're not fast enough, or football, or whatever it is, or they just don't have an interest in those things for whatever reason. But they might have an interest in driving a car. You just never know. And if the opportunity is not presented to them, then how would they even know? It's one of those, you don't know what you don't know. And so exactly. I love that they're offering these letters, because, I interview a lot of young girls, a lot of girls that are in middle school, high school. And something that I hear, maybe not as much as I did when I first started, but something that I hear is, well, they don't understand what I do. I don't talk about it at school because, they make fun of me. They say it's not, anybody can do that. And all these different things that are really hurtful, because we know it's not easy, and it's not cheap, and it takes a lot of work on and off the track, and a lot of time in the garage, etc. And so the fact that the school has said, yes, these kids, this is a sport that we're going to recognize, then that puts the credibility to it. And more schools need to do that. I'm sitting here thinking, of all the kids that I know that race just in the Kalamazoo area. They could race at a number of tracks and not drive more than maybe an hour and a half, to get to them. And wouldn't that be amazing to be able to offer that here in Michigan? So the fact that, you guys are the first and you're developing it. If somebody in Michigan said, hey, I want to start that here, how would they just say, talk to somebody else, talk to you, and you would help them get something going?
Yeah, certainly. I'm happy to be a resource. Highschoolracing.org is our website, and my contact information is there. The HSRA rules are there. And so, that's a great place to start. But if there's anyone out there listening that either, wants to race, or get it, their kids want to race, talk to those tracks that are near you, get them excited about it, talk to your school about getting involved. We've kind of left it up to schools right now on how involved or hands-off they want to be. Some of them, like Melrose Mindoro, have made it a letterable sport, and they're super supportive of their kids competing in this. And other schools have decided, we'll let our students know that the opportunity is there. We don't have the resources or have the interest at this time to be directly involved, but we're happy to spread the word, which is cool too. And so, talking with those athletic directors or auto program or tech ed teachers at the schools to get them excited about it, and talking with the local racetracks to get them excited about getting young talent into the sport is helpful. I'm one person, so the more help that I can get is great, and would love to get HSRA over into Michigan too. There's a lot of racetracks over there, and we'd love to really get this well established for sure in the Midwest, and branch out from there, and really make this a big thing, because our sport depends on getting new competitors and new fans into it in order to survive. And so many tracks are closing every year, and can use our help to get competitors on the track and fans in the stands. So certainly reach out to me if you have questions or want some help or information provided to these tracks or to these schools. Again, highschoolracing.org. But talking to those people about it directly is a big help too.
So who's so Weir's Machine is providing the scholarship, but is there a cost? I mean, not getting personal about you being the director, but if somebody wanted to get something started in a different part of the country, what is there a cost to getting it going as other than time? What would somebody be getting into if they wanted to start something in Oklahoma or California or wherever it might be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right now, for tracks to be under the HSRA umbrella or be an HSRA sanctioned track, it's a $500 sanction fee for them, and that gives them access to me and a director to help promote their events, but also working with the schools, working with local sponsors to get the support in their community for these high school racers, and then where was I going with that?
A cost,
and
what the cost is, and how,
and then honoring that pit pass deal that we provide to the HSRA racers. So again, it's these high schoolers pay $25 to their local track, to their home track at the beginning of the season. That fee goes to the track, and then they don't have to pay another pit pass for the rest of the season, even if they travel around to other tracks. So that's been huge for these kids to, that's a lot of money that they save throughout the summer season, especially if they are traveling to these other tracks. So it's a pretty minimal investment for the amount that they get from HSRA, and we're recognizing these champions. This will be the first year that Illinois has two or more tracks competing in HSRA. So there will be an Illinois state champion this year, as well as a Wisconsin state champion.
Okay.
That HSRA series champion, and we do a regional championship after the regular season's completed as well. In addition to the individual points, individual standings in HSRA, we also started doing a school championship. So in 2022, Melrose Mindoro High School was the school champion, and that's all of their racers. Their points go together; they pool together to get the school points. So Melrose Mindoro then got a traveling trophy for the school championship in 2022, and then we'll see what 23 brings, and whether it stays at Melrose Mindoro or it goes to another school. And so it's displayed in their trophy case at the school. They've got a school champion flag hanging up in the gym with all the other sports, and so we're trying to really get some visual representation in these schools of HSRA, so that more and more kids know that it exists, and maybe they didn't know that they could jump into racing or don't know where to start, and we're happy to help there if they need it.
So for kids that have never been involved in racing, and more so for now parents who know nothing about racing, how do the kids go about finding the car, getting the car? Do you give them some resources? Do you give them a list of what the car needs to have or need on it? How do they, because, if you don't know anything about racing, you wouldn't know the first place to start.
Right. You're exactly right. And we've got those resources at each of the tracks that are a part of HSRA, as well as some partners in the communities around those tracks to, if there is a family that approaches me or approaches the track and says, we have no idea how to even get into racing, but our student wants to race HSRA, where do we start? We can send them to some of these, 6-cylinder veteran drivers or some of these local body shops that have, come on as mentors and resources. And we have all of those connections around these tracks that we can say, hey, so-and-so, brand new to the sport. They've got a lot of questions about where to find a car, don't know how to put a roll cage in, where do they start looking for tires, things like that. And then, they can answer those questions so that they have a direct line of communication to someone who's either been through it or can help them find those materials that they might need.
Well, and, I give kudos to those businesses that are willing to help, because we know the cost involved. That's a no-brainer, even at a lower level, basically stock car. But, tires, everything you can think of, the price isn't going down, that's for sure. And so, and especially I just think about, people that have never been in the sport. We think, and I interview so many people, that it is generational. My grandpa raced, my dad raced, now I'm racing. I hear that a lot. But I hear more and more where they say, nope, nobody in my family raced. I went to a try and ride with my friend. She raced and I tried it and I went home and told my dad I wanted to do it. Or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my friend raced, a family friend, we go and then they get interested. And so to me, if my kid came home from school, especially high school, and said, hey, I want to join the racing club and I need to get a car and this and that, that would be overwhelming for me as a
Mm-hmm.
mom or a single mom or, you know, parents, whatever. So the fact that people have stepped up to help, and I think when it involves kids, more people are willing to help.
Yep.
They want to see those kids get involved.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's you know, the racing industry in general is really collaborative and willing to help other people. So, you know, whether it's another driver or it's a local sponsor of race teams, or
Right.
you know, some of the local towing businesses and body shops that have those connections of, yeah, that, you know, here's 5 places that might have the car, that probably have the car that you're looking for. And because the HSRA cars, the 6-cylinder cars have to be 2006 or older, so they're not, you know, brand new cars. There's probably a plethora of them sitting at a junkyard somewhere, and it's just a matter of finding, you know, figuring out where to start looking.
Right.
And so we're super happy to help connecting people to those resources. And there's been a lot of people in the racing community and the, you know, communities around the tracks that have been really willing to help these kids get started too.
Yeah, I'm learning so much, and the more I hear, the more I wish it was closer so that I could come and
We
watch.
got to work
But
on that.
we'll work on it.
We'll get it over closer to you. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Or
perfect.
And so about how far, if you lived in Madison, about how far would you have to drive or whatever to these other tracks?
Yeah. So if you were in Madison, so Madison International Speedway is just, you know, 15 minutes outside of Madison, south of the city. And then if you go north, you know, Wisconsin, Dells Raceway Park is less than 40 minutes from Madison. Slinger Speedway is a little over an hour. Beaver Dam is less than an hour. And Beaver Dam will be Beaver Dam was the first dirt track to come on for 2023. So HSRA hasn't raced on dirt yet. This will be the first season that we're racing on dirt and at multiple dirt tracks. So the current racers are really excited about that, of being able to, you know, go from an asphalt track and jump over to try dirt. So that's, you know, we're working with a lot of different kinds of tracks too, which is cool. Not only surface, but size, and all of the tracks have to be 3/8 mile or smaller. But outside of that, you know, each of these tracks are a little bit different in shape. You know, we've got the dirt tracks and the asphalt tracks, and they've all got a very different experience. So it's not a lot of people have the chance to, especially racing the, you know, the 6-cylinder cars or some of these lower level divisions on the small tracks, don't always have the opportunity to go around to all of these other tracks that these high schoolers do now. So we're trying to, you know, be intentional too, of having these tracks that are within closer proximity if people do want to try multiple tracks. You know, Lacrosse, Toma Sparta, and the Dells are all, you know, within less, you know, an hour and a half of each other tops. And so if someone lives, you know, anywhere around those tracks, they have 3 tracks really at their disposal to be able to go to. And we try when we can to not have overlap of schedules at each of these tracks. It's, you know, there's only so much summer. So it does happen once in a while that like Madison and Toma might be racing a Friday night. So the same Friday night. And so then the division kind of gets split there. But for the most part, we try and limit the amount of overlap so that these kids can race as much as they really want to all summer long.
So do you put the schedule together working with the tracks then, so that you don't have the hardly any overlaps?
Exactly. Yep. I work really closely with these track promoters to identify dates. I think I mentioned earlier that each HSRA track is allowed up to 6 race events on their schedule between June and September. So
Mhm.
we hold off on putting HSRA on the calendar until June, so that we're getting closer to the end of the school year too.
Right.
And, schools are starting to let out for the summer, and then they wrap up by the first week of September. When school is going to go back into session. And so most of the tracks have, between 3 and 5 dates on the schedule, but they're allowed up to 6 if they want it. And but we've got tracks that are racing Friday night, tracks that are on Saturday, Sunday. Beaver Dam's a Tuesday night show. So
Yeah.
there's some weeks that if they really wanted to, they could race 3 or 4 nights in that one week.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool to see how many of them are touring the state in 23 to get to all these other tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. And once they get the bug, then they're going to be bugging the parents to take them to all of those. So about how many kids do you have signed up, right now? Just because I know you're not to the end of getting kids interested, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah, and we'll be putting registration live real shortly for the 2023 season. We haven't done online registration in the past, so we're working through that right now, and I'm going to do some online registration for HSRA for this season. But in 2022, we had 26 essentially full-time HSRA racers. Between the 4 tracks, so there was only 4 tracks last year, and we've doubled the amount of tracks. Will not be at all surprised if we're at least double the amount of racers, just by the amount of excitement we've had and more people that have been learning that HSRA is a possibility, and siblings becoming old enough to go out and race with their siblings. And so I think we're going to be I expect headed toward about 50 racers at least between the 8 tracks this season. So really, really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too, because that just sounds like such a fun opportunity. And, so everybody that listens to me knows my granddaughter's raced, and my one granddaughter just turned 18 and she's still racing. So, but she races against men 4 times her age, know, and that's okay. She's and honestly, most of the time, when I talk to women or interview women, they don't want to race in the powder puff division. They want to race against the guys and that part. And I just think that it's a great way to get everybody used to the girls race against the boys. We're all in the same sport together. And then they're probably learning good behavior. They're learning good things by being a part of this series, because I'm guessing you don't tolerate a lot of things just like a high school sport wouldn't tolerate. And you throw kids in with adults at a racetrack, it can get ugly sometimes. And so that part of it, are there some rules in place where would be more like a high school sport, more so than a track?
Yeah, and we do not tolerate the rough driving, and have had to have some conversations about patience throughout the course of the season. But for the most part, these kids have been so respectful of each other on the track, and that's been really cool to see too, because they are high school students, and they're new to the sport, relatively new to the sport. They it's a great opportunity for someone just coming into the sport, because they are relatively on the same playing field, with it all being high schoolers in the division. But they've been so respectful and collaborative with each other. It's been really fun to watch. If there is an incident on the track, there's half the division is flocking to come help this other kid that might need a tire changed, or has a door dented in, or something like that. I've heard comments at the tracks when I've been there that, like, some of these other divisions should watch the high schoolers because
Yes.
they're clean drivers. And certainly as the season goes on, they get a little bit more confident, and there's there's more likelihood for incidents to happen on the track because they're racing a lot closer. But for the most part, they give each other the space. They're patient with each other, and they all hang out in the pits and help each other out. And so it's been really fun to watch. And we've been, in addition to the racing experience, been trying to offer other opportunities for some of these high school racers to have media interviews and to, talk in front of the grandstands. And racing, and that's been a big selling point for high schools too, is that racing it's not just jumping in the car and tooling around the track. There's we allow these high schoolers to get sponsors if they want to, and they just have to paint their car their school colors or incorporate their mascot in a way into their car, but they're allowed to get sponsors if they want to. And there's radio. I've had some of them on the radio promoting racing at the local track and doing TV interviews about HSRA, and so providing them some of these other communication tools and marketing tools too along the way is huge. It's such a well-rounded sport that you're not going to get that with all other sports, and that there's true sportsmanship and teamwork involved, and all of these other skill sets that can be really defined throughout the process.
Yeah, because I think about math and science are definitely part of racing, which you don't think about math and science being a part of baseball or basketball, really. And then I interview a lot of women that are not drivers, but they're involved in motorsports in some way. They might be an engineer, they might be a pit crew person, or whatever it might be. And that's the other thing, I think, that what you're doing really gives kids, it opens their eyes to what else is out there, because we know the normal occupations, if you will, that people go into, right? At medical fields or teaching or whatever it might be. But even kids that are in racing don't always think about, well, if I can't drive the car, how could I stay involved in motorsports? And I interview, I try to always keep my eye out for women that are doing something different in the motorsports field to show you could be the PR person, you could be the social media person, you could be the hair and makeup girl for NASCAR talent on race day. That is the thing. And I've met 2 women that do it, and they absolutely love doing it. Yeah. Now, even I didn't think about that being a thing, but there's so many behind the scenes things that go on. What about the girl? I don't know. When you're watching NASCAR and you see some gal walking around with the driver all the time. Well, who's that? Well, she's his PR person or whatever, there's just so many opportunities. And so getting them involved in racing can give them a different thought process about their future. Oh gosh, I love racing. I'm probably not going to do that as a career, but maybe I could be the accounting person for Richard Childress Racing. I could work in the accounting department. And yes, you're still involved in racing and you're involved in accounting, which is something else you love. So I like that you've got the opportunity to have these kids kind of full attention, if you will, to share some of those things with them.
Yeah, exactly. And we're starting to work a lot with some of the technical schools too, technical and trade schools that are near some of these tracks, because they want more students too into their programs and want to, they have a captive audience with HSRA and those families to talk about the kinds of programs. Maybe they don't, want to, go and work at the local body shop, but they have an interest in cars, and there's other engineering fields that they maybe don't know about, or could become a welder, or even outside of the hands-on trades too, and so talking with some of those schools that have, like University of Northwestern Ohio, who has a really well-established motorsports
They do.
program, and it's not just working on cars or driving the car. It is,
No.
Marketing and PR and the,
Yeah.
the administrative side of motorsports too. That that if people maybe just have an interest in racing but don't feel like they want to do it their whole life, or they don't want to race their whole life, or be on a crew or something, but maybe they do have an interest in working in the sport, whether that's at a local track or higher up, with NASCAR. There's so many different opportunities out there that people don't even realize exist.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, John, my head is spinning. I'm just thinking about all the kids that are involved and
I seem
should
to have
be
that
involved.
effect on people.
Do you? Well, that's a good thing for sure. That's a good thing. Well, what have I not asked you about that you should tell us and share about this?
Yeah, it we've covered a lot. If there's anyone out there that we talked about getting involved as a racer or as a racing family or a track that might want to get high schoolers involved at. We've talked a little bit about that, but if there's businesses or community organizations or anything out there too that or individuals that want to get involved in getting more high schoolers into the sport, supporting, whether that's financially or through other benefits and incentives for these racers, or just simply being a resource and a mentor to these racers, we need all of that too. So I can't encourage enough to reach out. Again, highschoolracing.org has all of my contact information and a rundown of what the High School Racing Association is, and we'd love to get more support behind us, but also get to more tracks and get more high schoolers involved and really continue to grow this thing. We've doubled the amount of tracks going into this season, but let's keep that going and keep that momentum flying so that we can really make this a big thing, throughout the Midwest and throughout the country, and getting young talent and new families and new fans into the sport and new organizations and just exposing as many people to auto racing as we can, because there's so many people out there that either don't know that their community has a local racetrack, or that they don't know someone that races or goes to the races, and so they don't know what they don't know. And so just exposing as many people to what we do is important. And we know that someone shows up to a racetrack once and they might be hooked then, and they might be a regular fan, or they might end up on a pit crew or racing themselves. And so we need to get more people out there and have some direct exposure to racing.
So I think I know the answer to this, but just to clarify, so if you're part of the High School Racing Association and you're a driver and you go to the Dells Raceway Park to race, your race is going to be only with those other kids in that division.
Exactly. Yep. We do not mix in HSRA with other divisions, veteran drivers that are out there. Nope. It's only the high school racers. It's only HSRA racers that are on the track at a time. And there's both a heat and a feature race each week. Certainly some practice and qualifying involved too. And there's a lot of these tracks have practice during the week too, or other times that you can come out if you are brand new and want to get as much seat time in those cars as you can. There's a lot of opportunities, and that's often a concern with parents too, is they've never raced before. How do we get them some practice? And there's practice involved every week that HSRA races, as well as outside of those regular days. And there's qualifying, feature race, heat race, and
nice.
And each of these feature winners is receiving trophies. So there's HSRA trophies going to the race winners. Here in Wisconsin, Quick Trip has been a great supporter of providing gift cards to race winners as well. And so we've had a lot of really great support, and but we can always use more. So
let me ask you this. So we're in year 2. So let's say in 2 more years, somebody started when they were 14 and they're still racing with you when they're 18, are there any rules about them? Let's say that at the Dells Park, they raced with HSRA, and then they go to Madison and they just race with whoever. Can they do that?
They, as of right now, they can, as long as it's not an HSRA night. So they can't race HSRA along with another division. But if they have another car and want to race a Hornet division, or there's another class that their HSRA car is eligible for, we do allow that. As of right now, the things are always changing, rules are always changing, but as of right now, that is allowed as long as they aren't also racing HSRA that night.
Well, and to me that makes sense, because we don't want to limit their interest.
Exactly. Right. If they want to race as much as they can, we want to allow that too. But we do want to, try and level the playing field as much as we can for the High School Racing Association too.
Yeah. Well, John, what a great interview. What a great information you've shared with me. I know there are going to be a lot of people who have never heard of the High School Racing Association, just like they've never heard of Women's Motorsports Network. We have to get our names out there, and the more we do, especially with what you're doing, the better and the more it will grow. So I'm glad I ran across your name and reached out to you, and I'm glad we could find a time that we could record this so that I can share with my listeners about what you're doing. So,
I really appreciate the time, and we have very similar goals and missions in mind. So it makes sense for us to work together and get the word out. And I'm really looking forward to this coming race season. And I'm not racing myself anymore, having retired last year, so I can put a little bit more focus on the High School Racing Association. It was a little bit crazy to try and race and also manage this. So looking forward to getting to some of the other tracks this year, working with other high schools around those tracks, other racers that maybe I haven't come across yet, and get to some of these new tracks. So if anyone in the Wisconsin area or is going to be near any of these tracks in Wisconsin this summer, certainly look at the High School Racing schedule and try and come and support these high school kids that are racing at the 6 tracks in Wisconsin and 2 tracks in Illinois. And our full schedule is on the highschoolracing.org website as well. So all of those track schedules are there. All
right. Well, I'm going to check them out for sure. I've been to Slinger. I've been to Sycamore, believe it or not. Yeah. So, but I haven't been to the rest of those, but you're doing great work, John. I just can't tell you enough how much I think this is a great association, and more states and more racetracks need to be a part of it, because this is really, if you think about it, a pretty simple way to promote racing and to get kids involved in a good atmosphere.
Exactly. Yeah. We, it should be an easy decision, right? We need more people in the sport, and getting them when they're young is great. And even if we, there's some cost investment in getting these kids in the sport right now, it's hopefully going to really pay off in the long run, and get more fans in the stands, and get more, who knows how many of these high school racers are going to end up as late model drivers down the line, and sticking with the sport for years and years to come. And we're seeing that already. We haven't had a lot of the high school racers graduate yet, but the ones that have and are staying in the sport, and they're getting involved in other race teams, or they're continuing to race themselves in other divisions. And that's what we want. We want to hook them and put it in their blood so that they stick around with us.
Well, and we also know, like you said, about getting people in the stands. If a kid's involved, aunts and uncles, grandpa, grandma, friends, friends of the parents, they're all going to come out and watch. And
they come in droves, and it's really cool.
Absolutely. So you've got a good model there for what you're doing. So
thank you.
Keep up the good work, John, for sure.
Thank you so much. Well, I really appreciate you having me on and talking about the High School Racing Association, and really looking forward to this race season. And let me know if you're in Wisconsin and visiting one of the tracks at some point.
I definitely will. Thank you.
Thank you.